thought they were coming to protect, and they should have been. Thought they were coming to defend, and they should have been. But a mistake occurred, and they bombed this innocent Dutch village, thinking that the Nazis were there. And everybody was killed but Johanna's father. He was the only survivor. He never found any evidence his sister had ever been alive. And the only remains of his mother that he could find was a little piece of scalp floating with some hair attached and her Bible. And he bought into Satan's lie, full of grief, overwhelmed with just terror. He said, I make a vow. I'll never bow my knee to you. You're no God of love to me. Everybody in the village died. He was the only survivor. It's a longer story than I have time to tell. But he escapes 2 concentration camps, and finally, after the war, is sent by the Royal Dutch Army to Indonesia to fight against a revolutionary who's nationalizing Indonesia. He mates Johanna's mom, a Chinese Buddhist lady, raised in the occult. They get married. They go back 30 days later to Holland. She never sees her parents again. She's miserable. Demon spirits are attacking her. He's an agnostic, mad at the world and mad at God. And some neighbor ladies trick Jan. They tell her she's going to Amsterdam. She thinks she's going to a party. They take her to a Billy Graham meeting. And Billy Graham said, I think metaphorically, Jesus is going to come meet you today. And he did. It was a vision so real that she thought he was really there. She started weeping. She had never been in a gospel service, never heard anybody preach with a Bible. She had never heard of Billy Graham. And when he gave the invitation to come to Christ in 1953 in Amsterdam, in a big stadium, she walked down that aisle a Chinese Buddhist and walked back up that aisle a Chinese believer, changed by the power of God. She came home and told her husband about this transformation in her life, thinking he'd be happy. He was mad at God, so that's the God he didn't like. And it's a longer story. He finally gets saved. When Johanna's 10, they immigrate to the United States and settle in a western Kansas town called Garden City. Today, her mother's 90 years old. Her father's in heaven. She's got a brother that's a deacon in a church. She's got another brother that's been a deacon in a church. She's got a sister that served on a church staff. She's got another brother that is pastor in a great church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. All because of God's grace and power. And that book's called Tangled Destinies. It's a fantastic story. If you want hope in your life, or you have a friend who's going through a struggle, there's a great, great opportunity. And it's also on Amazon. It's amazing how God has put stuff together. And be a real blessing to you. I'm going to do something now that I've just told you a little bit about the Acts 2 journey and the Acts 2 cohort and what we're doing. We've had 1,300 churches so far go through this journey in the United States. But now overseas, we've got churches in Taiwan and Dominican Republic, and I just came from Africa. And so what we're doing now is training trainers, training people to do what we do so they can spread it faster than we can even spread it for ourselves. And so in November, I'll be announcing the dates and show you how you could register. There's an intensive, a 3-day intensive where we'll study all the material. You'll get a manual. You'll get the survey I talked about. You'll get all of that. Plus, you'll get a portal into a training where there's 56 videos and all kinds of training materials that will help churches go to the next level. And what we do is try to help people find minimal health factors. It's like when you're trying to grow a garden, you just try to find what's keeping the garden from growing. It may not be big. It may be one little thing. It could be one bug. It could be not enough water. It could be a lot of things. You find that one minimal health factor, and everything turns around. And so some people think, well, if we're talking church health or church revitalization or, well, we're not dead. Well, you don't have to be dead, but every church has a next level potential. I said every church, every person has a next level potential. None of us have arrived. And so to find that minimal health factor is what we're all about. So as we are moving along, we know that one of the minimal health factors that can become a major health factor, a deficiency, if you don't have enough volunteers. So you heard me talk about one of the things is about serving. How do you get people involved? It's a very difficult thing when you anoint the wrong person. It's a whole lot easier to anoint people than it is to unanoint them. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And when you're in a smaller church and there's everybody related, anybody know what I'm talking about? And you hit one elephant, you knock the tail out of 10 more. Just one family getting upset could wreck your whole hospitality team or eliminate your worship team. It's called the law of the big number. The idiosyncratic behavior of an individual in a small church can be so pronounced that it can almost wreck you for the future. You take that same person, put them in a large church, they don't make a dent. They get mad and upset because they don't know everybody. But in a small church, they may be related to everybody. And so we have to be very careful. We have to be patient. We have to take the high road a lot of times. But there's a few things we can do to make sure we're selecting the right people. You say, well, I don't have a chance to select them. I just need warm bodies. I don't have enough people. If they're breathing, I want them. Be careful when you ask for something, because you may get it. So I'm going to take the next session, and I'm just going to teach one of the lessons that we would teach on a Friday to pastors to help them as they are beginning to look for volunteers or get people engaged in ministry, because that's one of the keys to going to the next level from a health position. So when I say becoming the right team player, I'm kind of personalizing it so we all have work to do so people don't feel like I'm just picking on them. So every time you're starting to make a change, every time you're starting to bring forth some new ideas, or anytime you're just wanting to create a biblical foundation, always start with the Bible for everything you want to do. Now, when I became a pastor, I didn't know some of this stuff. In fact, I didn't know any of this stuff. And I'm not real smart. But I believe the Holy Spirit helped me. The first year I was at First Assembly North Little Rock, I told you it was a strong church. It was a historic church. It was a stuck church. But a few people did all the work. Why? Because they always had. They were faithful. They were willing. And everybody else let them do it. They were tired and wore out. So I preached the first year. I didn't know what I was doing, Randy. I did not know. But I preached the first year 15 weeks in a row on the priesthood of all believers. I didn't know why I was doing that, but the Holy Spirit inspired that because I was preaching, you're not a plumber, you're a priest. The Bible says, Peter says, you are a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Revelation 1:6, you're a kingdom of priests. You're priests. Somebody said, well, I'm an accountant. No, accounting is what you do to support your priesthood. I preached it from every angle you can imagine. Trying to help them to understand that you need to get out of the stands into the game. Just like a football game. You got 60,000 people in the stands desperately needing exercise. And you got 22 people on the field desperately needing rest. And it's not going to happen. We don't want that to happen in church. So this is not the priesthood of all believers, but it is a good scripture. As there are many parts in our body, so it's with Christ's body. We're all parts of it. It takes every one of us to make it complete. For we each have a different work to do. So we belong to each other, and each needs all the others. That's a scriptural principle, precept that you have to get in place. It doesn't take the same level of anointing to mow the yard as it does to sing on the worship team. Now, when I was growing up, I grew up in a holiness context, and I'm not picking on your name if it's got holiness in it. But we were pretty legalistic. We didn't have television in our home. We couldn't go to the fair. We didn't like the color red. I'm serious. Anybody know what I'm talking about? My dad, when he began to kind of relax a little bit, he said, our problem is we like to clean our fish before we catch them. You couldn't come in the house if you hadn't cleaned. I mean, you say, we really would like to have a few cigarette butts in the parking lot. Because that means you got some sinners in the church. If you got a copy of my book, there are 5 classes of people in that book that we talk about, and they're always moving. There's the unconverted, there's the converted. There's the disciple, there's a servant leader, and there's a reproducer. Nobody's at the same level. Or maybe there's not everyone at the same level. And some people are moving from level to level. But you're always in a state of growth. So you got to get people to realize you can be involved. Somebody said, well, this person has no talent. He has no ability. I can't give him a responsible job. Put him in the basement. Let him watch the pilot light to see if it's still burning. You can give him the pilot light watching ministry. I mean, there's... Don't try that. That was a joke, okay? That'll get you fired. There's 5 qualities of a team player, and character obviously is very high, but I really can't coach character. That's a spiritual issue. You got a character problem, a character flaw. There's a difference between discipling somebody and putting them in leadership. I believe there's a higher level of responsibility and accountability for leaders. So if you're going to be a leader, we want you to, it's going to be different. But you got to give them that expectation way ahead of when you got to confront them. So you got to teach this stuff way ahead of when you actually put them into, okay? Character. The competency. I can coach competency. You can get better. You got to train them. Chemistry. I could take a little while here. I'm not going to. I actually teach a lesson on how to improve your likability factor. People don't like you. I don't care how much you talk in tongues. I don't care how much you exegete to Greek and Hebrew. If they don't like you, they're not going to follow you. I think likability is very underrated. Well, I don't care if people like me or not. I just want them to respect me. How's that working out for you? Somebody says, well, what's your first point on becoming more likable? Quit being a jerk. That'll help you out a lot. I used to tell our staff all the time, everybody can be a jerk but us. I'm serious. When I get quiet, it's not because I don't have anything to say. It's just I don't think I should say what I say. And then I go ahead and say it. A guy asked me one day, he said, do you always say what you say you're not going to say? I said, pretty much. You have to be cooperative, and you have to have a common goal. So if you don't have these problems, and you know, you got to teach this stuff. The body of Christ functions as a team. That's scriptural. Teams accomplish more than individuals working separately. You can talk out of Ecclesiastes. You can talk at different places. 2 are better than 1, right? You know. Let's build trust is a building block for team. I'm just going to do a little acronym here. 3 building blocks build trust. Maybe more, but at least these 3. Number 1 is consistency. You could say predictability if you want to. Your past performance is an accurate predictor of your future behavior. The reason it's good to grow people from the inside, you get to watch them before you anoint them. Resumes, because most people lie on them. Well, they don't lie, they just don't tell the truth. Why? Because you're afraid you'll violate their confidence. And most people do. I believe in confidentiality. I just never seen it operate. I used to preach this. If you don't want it known, don't tell anybody. Well, I trust them. It's not them that you don't need to trust. It's the people they're going to tell that you can't trust. I'm just telling you, you need to understand reality. If you're always on time, you're never late. You're supposed to be somewhere, You're not there, they're going to come looking for you very quickly because you have given them your style. If you're always late, never punctual, sometimes you never show up, you never even call anybody, you never report in, you could be dead in a ditch for 3 days. Nobody's looking for you because you have already told them, I'm not consistent. Loyalty. I don't have enough time to spend on this, but let me tell you. Loyalty has to be taught in church. Teams, board members, staff members, volunteers, you got to teach loyalty because the flesh will never default into loyalty. It's the flesh. It never defaults into excellence. It never defaults into holiness. It never defaults into righteousness. It's the flesh. So what do you mean? Well, you got to help people understand, create scenarios. So you got a youth pastor. Youth pastor's going to preach when you're on vacation. You got a little group of people in the church not real happy with you right now. So the youth pastor preaches, and when he gets through, he walks down in this little group. Oh, that was a phenomenal message. You know, I haven't felt the anointing like that in so many months. I wish pastor could preach like that. Now, he's got a choice. Let that ego be fed or cut it off. Because he's going to be loyal or disloyal right there. If he's going to be loyal, he has to say, you know what? Thank you for your compliment, but I give all the glory to God. Secondly, if pastor hadn't given me this platform, I wouldn't even be here. And if you think I preached a good sermon, I ought to. I only do it twice a year. He's got to preach 3 sermons a week. I ought to get a good sermon. Besides, I sense that maybe you have a little something that you need to share with the pastor. Why don't you meet with him and work this out? You see, every time somebody comes to you bringing some bad information about somebody else, the first question you ought to be is, have you been to them? Well, if I do, they'll have all kinds of excuses. So, well, if you don't want to go to them, because they'll say, oh, no, I don't think that'll work. Well, why don't you let me go with you? I'll make the appointment. I'll sit with you, give you a little courage. Well, that won't work. I said, well, let me tell you something. Would you write that down one more time? Or let me write it down? Or let me record it? Why? It's because I don't want to misquote you when I tell them what you said. Well, if I do that, they'll quit telling me stuff. Bingo. You know, I don't understand. Well, all the negative just comes to me. Well, hello. Like spirits attract. Garbage cans. Well, I got to hurry. But it works both ways. A board member should never walk out of a board meeting. You can disagree behind the closed doors all you want to. But when you've decided what the answer is going to be, everybody walks out in lockstep, and I don't want to hear anybody saying, well, I didn't really vote for that, but I have to go along. You say, well, you can't do, it's harder to do that one-on-one than it is to stand in the pulpit like I'm doing and have all these people clapping and stuff, and the person who's guilty, they don't even have to identify themselves. I tell people when I'm preaching on this kind of stuff, if you're guilty, don't turn red in the face, get mad. Keep shouting, throw us off track. I'm just trying to be a blessing, that's all. I'm going to preach tonight. I'm right now meddling. Time. Takes time. It takes time. Hang out. Go laugh. Go play. Go eat. Go pray. Do stuff together. The proof of trust is delegation. Proof of trust is delegation. Empowerment. We always talk about this empowerment. What does that mean? This is out of the book. If you got a copy of the book, you'll find it there. Enlist. If you're going to start enlisting volunteers, show them the benefits and the blessings of serving. I know we've all done it. We've played the card of the dire straits. If you don't come work in the nursery, next week we're going to have to set the kids on the curb. That'll work maybe once or twice. But pretty soon they'll quit believing you. So, but try to talk about the benefits and the blessings of serving God's kingdom. And then tell them what you expect of them. if you want to write a ministry covenant or a job description, or make sure you tell them. You cannot inspect what you have not expected. Now, you got to grandfather some people into this. You can't just jump out there. One guy called me one day and he says, "You've really got me in trouble." Because I said, have them talk. I mean, tell them what you expect. He said, "I had a lady who'd been in church 25 years, been teaching the class, been singing in the choir, and when I was preaching on that they had to be a tither if they were going to be in ministry, she went crazy. She jumped all over me." He said, "Where in the world did you get that?" I said, "Well, did you tell her it was kind of in the Bible?" He said, "No, she's too mad to talk about the Bible." I said, "Did you tell her that if everybody did what she did, we wouldn't have a church?" "No," he said, "she wasn't reasonable." I said, "Well, what'd you tell her?" He said, "I told her you made me do it." But I'm just saying, you have to tell people what you expect. You want them to have a good attitude. You want them to pay tithe. I mean, I've gone to churches and tried to deal with boards and stuff, and the board members didn't even tithe. They wouldn't tell everybody else how to spend money. They weren't going to give anything. Any of y'all behind on your tithe to your denomination, you better get it in right now, because these superintendents are taking names. They'll send a copy of this to y'all's house. Equip. You got to adequately resource. Assess their gifting. Train people for competence. In other words, you want people in the right spots. You want them in the right spot. When we do this grow track, we do ACTS, ACTS. A is ability, C is calling, T is temperament, S is spiritual gift. So you don't want somebody with a gift of giving with a phlegmatic personality who's a little disorganized. You don't want them as your business administrator. They give all your money away. They don't care. They're not looking at the bottom line. You don't want somebody with a prophetic gift, with an administrative gift, with a melancholy or personality. You don't want them running your thrift store. They're not going to give anything away. You certainly don't want them as greeters. The people you want as greeters are phlegmatic, sanguine, people who love to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. People who cry at supermarket openings. That's who you want out at the front door. Those other people, they're not going to hug anybody. They don't want anybody invading their space. I can come to your church right now, and I can walk in your room of volunteers or staff or whatever you got, and I can tell you where the conflict is before I ever interview anybody. I don't need to tell you all the conflict, but I can tell you where a lot of it is. Tell you where the first one is, and that's between the youth pastor or the children's pastor and the business administrator, the accountant or the control, whoever that is. It's the same. The youth pastor, he ain't never going to turn the receipts in. I got a deal today from my office saying, "Where's the receipt from 20?" I don't know. I don't know where the receipt was. I'm not mad at her. That's her job. I went to the district office, and one lady in the accounting, two or three of them came to me and said, "We got to get rid of her. She's got a raunchy attitude. She didn't like us. She's always picking on us." I said, "What do you mean picking on you?" And then I went and talked to her. She's one of the most unbelievably loyal people to that district that I've ever seen in my life. I finally went out there and I said, "Let me tell you something, guys. If I listen to you and I fire Gorma, I'm going to hire another one just like her." Trust them with responsibility and unleash them with authority. If you're not going to let some people have some responsibility, you're going to frustrate them. You're not creating leaders, you're creating a follower. And you have to give them some authority. Now, you don't have to give them unlimited authority. There's always levels of authority based upon their level of responsibility. Monitor them through accountability. That's my next point, so I'm not going to deal with that. Praise them in public, correct them in private. Don't get in the pulpit and start trying to correct everybody. You're informing people about a problem that they didn't even know existed until you are the one that told them. Okay, shout now. I'm preaching a lot better than you're shouting. Accountability. There's several different ways to talk about accountability. Did you watch anything you shouldn't have watched? Did you go anywhere? That's accountability. But here's my way of thinking accountability in this context. Accountability is offering necessary information before it is required. You say, I don't understand what that means. Men, I can help you. If your wife has to ask you how she looks, it's too late. You're dead meat, pal. It's a trick question. Don't answer that question. It's a trick question. But you better be smart enough to answer it the right way. If you acquiesce and go, oh, honey, you look beautiful, she's going to say, if you thought that, how come you didn't bring it up? See, that's a trick question. Just like, does this dress make me look fat? Don't answer that. Some of y'all are going, I didn't know this was going to be a marriage session. If I go to the house at night, we kind of stay up late. That's kind of what we do. My wife's sitting there on the computer at 10:30, and I walk by her, and I don't say anything. I walk out to the garage, and I don't say anything. And I open the garage door, and she hears all of this happen. I don't say anything. I start the car. She don't say anything. Finally, she realizes I'm leaving. It's 10:30 or a little later at night, and she doesn't know where I'm going. She doesn't understand why I didn't say something. When she walked by, and she getting a little bit perturbed, and she says something in a little tone that I'm not exactly appreciative of, in a decibel level that I'm not appreciative of. And she goes, hey, Alton, where do you think you're going? And then the spirit of stupid comes on me. And I respond in like kind, and I go, none of your business. I don't have to report to you. How many thinks there might be a little tension in the Garrison household, huh? You think she has a right to know where I'm going at 10:30 at night? Absolutely. But if she has to investigate and then I don't respond correctly, trouble. If I walk by and say, honey, I'm going to Walmart, I'll be back in about 20 minutes, she never looks up. So you teach people, you're going to be a part of our team. You're not going to meet some expectation that we have of you. Report it before we have to go looking for you. Because when they don't meet your expectation and they don't say anything, you don't say anything usually the first time. But you notice. And then the second time, you notice and you're a little bit perturbed. And the third time, you're getting a little angry now. You gunny sack all that stuff, and pretty soon it just bubbles over. And then you become a jerk because you pop off, and they get hurt. And they say, Pastor got mad at me. And they never forgive you. They can blow up, and they want you to forgive them by next Sunday. It doesn't work the other way. So just give people the necessary information before it is required. If you're going to have to leave early Friday morning, tell some of these leaders. Don't make them think you got upset and left because you didn't enjoy what was happening. I'm just trying to be a blessing. I'll be gone in the morning. I'm reporting that now because I got to be at another conference. This is worth the price of admission. I'm just unapologetically telling you this because I didn't create it. I don't remember exactly. It might have been Rick Warren or somebody. I've been doing this so long I forgot. I don't know. This I taught, once I found it, I taught it every year at the church on Sunday. Every year. This is in the book. This is worth the price of admission. This you need to teach. Did I make my point? Okay, I'm just making my point. This is the leadership triangle. I want you to see that at the bottom of that triangle, that line is the longest. You say, well, yeah, that's your line of rights. Today's mantra is, I have my rights. When you are at the bottom of the leadership triangle, you have your rights. You can come and sit in church, and you can say anything you want to say. I don't like what they're singing. I wish they'd sing something I like every once in a while. I don't like this new music. I tell you what, I can't even keep up with them. I don't know what it is. It was just so cold last week. I tell you what, Pastor, I've heard him preach a lot better. Whatever you want to say. We may not like it, but you can say it. But once you start becoming part of the team and you start picking up responsibilities and you join the greeter team, you get a little button and you put it on this and you become a part of the greeter team, the hospitality team, and you stand at the door on Sunday. Now, your line of rights just got shorter. You don't have a right to express yourself anymore. I said you don't have a right to express yourself anymore. You are now representing God, the pastor, and the church. This is the day the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad. And y'all come on in. It's a great day. When I came to this church, I was a royal mess. But I tell you, God got my life back together, and I want you to know your family's going to be, come on. I'm telling you, this is going to be one of the greatest sermons you've ever heard. This music is going to, well, I don't feel that way. In fact, I've had a kind of a headache, and I've not been real happy, and I just, you can do that, then take your little badge off and go back and sit down and go back down to that other line right there. I mean, that's true, isn't it? Didn't you get to be, I put usher there because I know there's a lot of people give online now, but I like that usher business because I said every usher ought to be a tither. Not just the deacons, not just the staff member, not just the volunteer. Every usher. Why? Because if you'll steal from God, we don't stand a chance. Because he said, well, remember he said, they might palm 20 out of the offering. I just making a point. And then if you're part of the worship team, you don't have to say the right thing. You got to look the right way. You can't stand up there singing worship songs and with a sour expression. You got to look the right way. Look how your line's getting shorter. Look at it. Then you become a teacher, you got even less rights. Then you become a department leader, it's less rights. And you can put anything in there you want to. Board member, less rights. Staff, less rights. Pastor, you hardly have any rights. Then I usually say our general superintendent, but you can put Charles Hanson, or you can put anybody up there, Randy, or they have no rights. See, when you start laying down your rights and picking up your responsibilities, you got to give up the right to be lazy. You got to give up the right to be unforgiving. You got to have the right to get angry. You got to give up the right to be late. Come on, you understand what I'm saying? You got to say all. You got to give up the right to be a critic. You got to give up the right to be a gossip. You got to give up. You sometimes have to give up the right to be right. If you knew the power of the apology, you'd feel like abusing it. So you you have to limit your options out of love, and so God gives you your reward. The less rights you have, the more responsibility God gives you, and the more rewards you come. Options decrease as responsibilities increase. Teach that. And then when you start saying to somebody, I'd like to know if you'd like to teach this class for 30 days or 60. I always put sunset at the beginning. Nobody does anything in today's world infinitum. I mean, how many people do you know young that thinks they're going to have one job for one lifetime? That's the builders that did that, not the Gen Z. They want to change. So you just say for 60 days, let's try this and see how. Because you remember when I taught you about it? We're going to check this out and see how you like it. Really what you're saying is how I like it. But TEAM. M stands for mentorship. Now, there's many definitions of a mentor. This is just one I picked, but you could have another one similar. But it's just somebody that's a supporter who has your best interest at heart, usually older, but not necessarily, who's more experienced, could be reverse mentoring, who provides advice and support, and fosters the progress. Mentorship is people are dying for spiritual, remember what I said? Spiritual fathers and mothers. That's one of the needs of this generation. They're looking for a spiritual father. Many, many, many people, particularly in urban America, are raised in fatherless homes. They're looking for somebody to be a mentor to them. Now, there's two ways to receive wisdom, mistakes and mentors. Mistake is a slow way. It's the hard way. Mentor is the easier way and the faster way. Just a few facts. Your mentor is not necessarily your best friend. Your best friend loves you the way you are. Your mentor loves you too much to leave you as you are. See, you got to have somebody that cares enough about you that'll tell you when you have spinach on your teeth. They're not going to let you walk around and embarrass yourself. But usually you're not going to get that privilege until somebody asks you, let me be a mentee to you. I give you permission to walk into my life and correct me and redirect me and help. See, if you give them that permission. Why? Because if you're in a relationship, in a job, or somewhere in a ministry, you don't want to be thinking, I need to tell them this, but I don't know how they're going to react. Take that off the table. Your best friend is comfortable with your past. Your mentor is comfortable with your future. Your best friend ignores your weakness. Your mentor removes your weakness. Have you ever seen people that you knew if they just correct one little thing, it would certainly improve their presentation or their preaching? Or some people just have an annoying personality that you could correct if they'd listen to you. Listen to your wife, sir. She's not just nagging. She's trying to help you. Same with the other. Listen to your husband. If you have love for each other and you do it in the right spirit, you're trying to help. Really, mentorship, I didn't put up there, but really mentoring, if you ask me to be your mentor, you're really saying you can tell me anything you think is necessary to improve me, and I can't get mad at you. That's what you're saying. Your best friend is your cheerleader, your mentor is your coach. Watch the sidelines. Sunday football, Saturday football. You think that coach is a nice guy? You think he shows films of how wonderfully they played? He picks out every mistake they made. Not in church, because we're blessed. We're blessed, we're blessed, we're blessed. I don't want anybody helping me. Lady had these streamers one day. She's just popping them, and people couldn't even worship. I mean, to come right in front of your face, and you dodging and stuff. So I called her and I said, I want you to talk to me. What are you trying to do? I'm praising the Lord. I said, we don't do streamers here. She said, well, don't you want me to have freedom in worship? I said, yeah, but I don't think that's what's happening. You're calling a lot of attention to yourself and you're making everybody nervous. And she said, well, I just think everybody ought to have free expression. I said, well, when we get ready to do streamers, you'll know it. Because I'll preach 3 sermons on it, and then everybody will get a streamer, and we'll all do it together. But until then, it's not welcome. Well, you're saying I'm not welcome in your church? I said, no, your streamer's not welcome. You can still come, which she didn't, but that's okay. I'm not talking about the flags. I'd never seen the streamers, or whatever they call them. It's like a fly fisherman. I mean, it would just... That's an Assembly of God church. Y'all wouldn't have that in your church, I know. Your best friend sees what you do right. Your mentor sees what you do wrong. Your mentor sees things you cannot see. They see weakness in you before you experience the pain of that weakness. They see an enemy before you discern one's present. They have already experienced the pain of a problem that you're about to create. Isn't that good? Recognition of a trusted mentor can prevent 1,000 heartaches. A lot of people mentor me, not just the ones that have close proximity to me. I get mentored over tapes, and used to, videos, used to, MP4s, now, Zoom calls, whatever. I've already talked about the Acts 2 survey. The Grow Track is it is a simulation plan, but it also has some surveys that you can find out what people's gifts are and what they may be moving toward with their temperament, style. You know, I'm not going to argue with you how you preach the gifts. I preach that there's three groups: a manifestation gift, a ministry gift, and a motive gift. One's out of 1 Corinthians 12, the other's out of Ephesians 4, and the other one's out of Romans 12. But you could teach it any way you want to. But I'm just saying that people do have certain bents towards certain things, and I want them to be properly slotted. The one thing I wanted to tell you about is if you have interest, the Acts 2 Journey Facilitator Training is November 19th through 21st. It's going to be in Springfield. Acts2journey.com is my website. You can go there and you can register. It costs $300 to go. You have to be there Monday because we start at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning. But you get all of the PowerPoints, all of the training, the student manual and the training manual, the $150 survey. You get all of that in a portal that gives you entrance into our training portal with 56 videos of everything. And right now, around the world, so even all of the missionaries are being, not all of them in the Assemblies of God, but many of them are being coached in how to do this overseas. In Indonesia right now, one of our missionaries has already gained, I don't know how many, 200 churches or something he's doing this for. So it's already translated into 6 languages, and it's been translated into other languages. It's in French, it's in Spanish, of course it's in English, it's in Swahili, and so if y'all have missions involvement in like Tanzania or Kenya, it's already in Swahili. The book is in Swahili. It's in French, did I say that? Man, I can't remember. There's 6 of them, and they're getting ready to do Portuguese, and they either are working on it now or getting ready to do it. So we'd love to have you there. Like I said, we had 5 different denominations last time, and any questions you have, I'll be around tonight. I'm going to be preaching, so I won't be talking about this tonight. I'll be playing the piano tonight, and we're going to have church. Anybody have a question before we go? Anything I said you just said, I just got to get clarification on that, or you can talk to me in the hall, or if you agree or disagree.